Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Menachos Memtes. We begin on the top line, on the last word of that line. Tani Rabba Bar Chana. He presented a halacha in front of Kamei the Rab as follows. Kivsi Atzeres. So those are the two sheep that we're talking about for the last couple of days, the Shlomims. And as we know, there were many karbanos brought on Shavuos aside from these. Specifically, there are Elim, rams, which are a karban oila. So we have kvasim, which are shlomim, we have Elim, which are oila. And what happened? Kivsi Atzeres sheshchatan l'shem Elim. So he did the shchita on the Kivsi Atzeres, which are meant to be sheep for the shlomim, and he claims, he has a mind and he claims that I'm doing this L'shum Elim, says Rashi, as though they're rams and they're oilos. Okay, I'm diverting everything. The type of animal, a type of karban. Kivsi Atzeres sheshchatan l'shum Elim. He did the shchita on the Kivsi Atzeres as shlomims, and he has in mind these are rams for an oila. Ksheir. So although it was shaloi lishma, the actual karban can still proceed, it's kosher. However, it's not considered a fulfillment of their obligation, right? They have to bring another one. But the it doesn't get credited to the owner. So that's his opinion. Why? Because it's like a shalei lishma. Amalei Rav disagrees. Certainly it counts 100%. It's not considered shalei lishma. Why? Amar Rav Chizah. Let me explain to you what Rav had in mind. Mistav Musa the Rav. It's probable that Rav was referring to the following case, because Sover Elim, that this fellow thought that these were rams. You know, he wasn't an animal expert, so he thought that these were the animals, the Elim, the shlamims. V'shachtan l'shem kvasim, and still he decided, I'm going to shech this as though it's a keves, as a shlamim. Okay, so ultimately what happened? He was right on, because really they were kvasim and they were shlamims, and that's what he had in mind. So we ignore what he had. That's exactly what he said and what he did. So we ignore what was going on in his mind. He was thinking Elim. That's irrelevant. The fact is, he said this for kvasim. He did a keves, and that's what counts. Shari kvasim, l'shum kvasim nishchatu, because ultimately these were kvasim that were shechted l'shem kvasim. That was as per his declaration. So that's why Rav says it's not a problem. Aval, but let's say kasover Elim. He was thinking that these are rams, right? And therefore he proceeded as though they're rams, and he declared and he announced that I'm doing the Elim, the oilos. In this case, you can't consider it a perfect karban. You have to redo it. It's kosher, but the owner has to redo it because he hasn't fulfilled his obligation. Why? Akira betos, because this fellow who uprooted, who redesignated, who relabeled the karban, he was claiming that it's an ayil and announced his intention as such. So it's an akira, but although it's betos, it was rooted in a misunderstanding, a misidentifying of the karban. Still, have akira. It's considered an uprooting, meaning it's considered a diversion, a relabeling, and it's a misdirected karban, and therefore it's considered shlei lishma. Okay, so according to Rav Chizah's interpretation of Rav, if in fact it was an akira, it's called shalei lishma, despite the fact that it was a mistake. Rabbi Amar says no. An akira, by way of a mistake, is not considered a change. Rabbi Amar akira b'tors l'havi akira. In this case, although he switched it and considered it an ayil and did it for that purpose, it doesn't matter because it was a tos. It was rooted in his mistake. It wasn't an intentional, conscious, cognizant change. And therefore, akira b'tors lo have akira. Amar Rabba, u'meisfin nashmait, I have a question on my own position. It would seem from my Mishnah in Maseches Gittin that even an erroneous akira is considered an akira. We have an halacha regarding kayhanim. Kayhanim shepiglu b'mikdash. So the Yisrael, the owner, brings an animal to the Beis HaMikdash, all excited to bring his karban. The kohen takes over, and he turns it into a pigel. Okay, he does the avodah, with something in mind, to do it in the wrong time, to eat the carbon, in a couple of days, etc. Who's responsible? Does he have to repay the owner for the lost carbon, which is now possible? So it depends. Mezid and Chayav, if they did it knowingly, consciously, they have to repay the owner for the cost of the lost carbon. Okay, but let's make a diuk. Let's infer from here. But if it was done unintentionally, mistakenly, they're potter. Okay, as the Gemara discusses there in Maseches Git. In any case, V'tani Allah. But we have a brayso which explains this mission of pigul and pigul. That even in the case of the shoygeg, that's only a mitigating factor in terms of exempting the kohen and absolving him of what he did. But what he did still takes effect. The carbon is still pigul. So bottom line, we see that even a pigul b'shoygeg is pigul. That sort of relates to what we're talking about. Akira v'toas, right? Let's see. Echidam. When we say it was pigul b'shoygeg, what exactly was he saying? What exactly was he thinking? Shall we assume that he knew that it was a carbon chatos, which has a shorter, eating time span, only a day and a night, and he intentionally processed the carbon as though it's a shlamim with a longer, consumption time frame, which makes it pigul, right? Since he intended on eating it past the expiration date. Now that's not a shoygig. High shoygigin. Why does the Mishnah refer to that as a shoygig? Mizid and habu. There's as negligent as can be. Elalab. So it must be the kosavar shlamim. The kohen thought it was a shlamim with a longer consumption time frame. Kosavar shlamim hu become machashab al shum shlamim, and therefore he intended it for a shlamim. But really, it was a chatas, with a shorter expiration time, in which case it becomes pigul. And what does the Mishnah say? Despite the fact that it was unintentional, Ktani, pigul, and pigul becomes pigul. Alma. Apparently, akira betos have even a mistaken, erroneous mislabeling takes effect. That's a kasha my position, says Rabbah, that it doesn't take effect. Only Abaye. So Abaye comes to the rescue. He says, no. Let me explain to you the Mishnah in a way that's consistent with your position. Certainly the Kohen realized all along that it's a chatas. And he consciously intended it for a shlamim. Now why is that a shagig? He knew what he was doing, but he didn't realize the severity of what he was doing. He didn't realize that it was a sin. He didn't realize that it's asur. So there's an element of inadvertency there. It's considered a shagig, but it doesn't relate to our discussion. We're talking about a toast. He wasn't doing a toast. He knew what he was doing. But if it was a real toast, perhaps it does not take effect. Masad Rab Shimon, Rab Zera, comes another kasha on Rabbah's position that a mistaken mislabeling doesn't take effect. Rab Shimon Aymer. Rab Shimon says like this: called Menachos shenikum sushligish mangsheris. In contrast to an animal carbon which was mislabeled, which certainly detrimentally affects the carbon, by a mincha it's different. If the kmitza, the scooping, was done shaloi lishman, with the wrong carbon in mind, the wrong mincha in mind, ksheris v'alu lebalam shemchayv, not only is it kasha, but the owner gets full credit. It's a perfect carbon. You know why? Because you can't mislabel a mincha whose material and format is clearly evident and apparent and obvious. You see what you're doing. It's this type. You can't mislabel it. She'ena menachos daims l'zvacham, because a mincha is very different than a zevach. Look, he has a minchas machvas, the more thicker, tougher, like a consistency. Right? It was a mincha that was fried in a shallow fried, manner. And he's doing the kmitza on that. L'shum archeshes, claiming that it's a marchesha, which is a more deep fried, oily, consistency. It's a non-starter. He's obviously falsifying masel, the physical properties of the mechichan aleh she machvas clearly indicate that it's a machvas. Another example of an attempted diversion, which is a non-starter. Charev l'shem blula. He's doing the avodah on a dry mincha without oil, claiming that it's blula mixed with oil. Well, you obviously wrong. Masel mechichan aleh she chareva. Everybody sees it's chareva. Therefore, says Reb Shimon, a diversion by a mincha doesn't really count. In contrast to the animal karbanos, where it's all pretty much one and the same process. Shchita achas lekulon. The shchita on the oila is the same like by the shlamim, so you can't really tell them apart if he attempts to divert. Kabal achas lekulon, the receiving of the blood is the same as rika achas lekulon. Okay. End of quote. Hechidami, let's go back and analyze. What exactly was this kohen having in mind when he did the kmitza on the machvas l'shomar cheshes? Hechidami, ilem v'diyada the machvasi v'kol kometz l'shomar cheshes. Is he aware that it's a machvas and he's insisting that he's doing it as a macheshes? So it's a diversion, whether we like it or not. He is relabeling it, irrespective of the physical presentation, the physical properties of the mincha that he's handling. Ki ma'aseh mechichin mayavi. The maasim that indicate otherwise, meaning the format of the mincha which contradicts his claim, mayavi, how's that a factor to override his declaration? The fact is, he's being aikar. I mean, you're disproving, but he is claiming otherwise. He is declaring, I'm doing it as a different type of mincha. That should disqualify the mincha. He's not doing it with the right, intention. So it must be the kosavar machashasi. We're speaking that really, in his mind, he erred. He thought that it was mincha type B. And therefore he did the kmitza for the sake of mincha type B. And really it was a mistake, because really it was type A. And here we say that here we say that we don't have to reckon with his diversion, because he wasn't really trying to divert it. He thought it was mincha type B, and really it was mincha A, which is obvious to all, and therefore that determines the avodah. Okay, since he's obviously making a mistake, we just ignore what he was thinking and we go with the facts on the table. Now, it seems that this factor at play, the fact that the facts on the table override his erroneous diversion, is unique to this type of case, this type of arrangement, this type of equation, where the masim override clearly indicate that he's making a mistake and we ignore what he's thinking. But typically, in absence of the ma'aseh mechichin aleh factor, suppose you don't have facts on the table which clearly contradict what he's claiming, what he's saying. Like by an animal carbon, where you can't really disprove him from the facts on the table. Akira b'tos have akira there. We have to go with what he's thinking. Therefore, we have to go with what he's saying, even though it's a mistake. So we see that even an erroneous diversion takes effect. Unlike Rabbah, who says otherwise. Only Abaye. Once again, Abaye to the rescue. He says, no. It's not a kasha. In the case of the mincha, no, we're speaking that he realized that it's type A, it's a machvas. And he's insisting, I'm doing it as type B. So it's an intentional diversion. We're not talking about a mistake. So again, it has nothing to do with our discussion, it's not a toss. We're talking about intentional diversion. Still, Reb Shimon says, ignore it. Because the facts on the table contradict what he's saying. Everybody sees this type A. And now, as to your concern, who cares about the maasim contradicting his claim? After all, he's insisting, I'm doing it as type B. The answer is Rola Tamei. The Amar Rava. I'm changing it to Rabba actually. Rabba Latame Dama Rabba. You see, we're referring to Rabba's Shita, right? Rabba is the one who said Akira Batos is not an issue. So according to that, according to Rabba's opinion, this whole kasha won't be a problem, because Rabba, if you remember back on the Beis Amid Beis, Rabba actually will be perfectly in line with his approach to the whole understanding of the Shaloi Lishma by the Mincha. Because Rabba explained way back, Rabba explained to us that a diversion, a machshava, which diverts, the loy minkara, which is not visibly false, such as when he's doing a shchita on oil claiming against a shlamim. Look, the facts on the table don't contradict him. Pasal Rahman, that variation of Shaloi Lishma is a problem. That the Torah disqualifies. But by a mincha where it's clearly evident that it's type A, machshava de minkara, a diversion which is clearly contradicted, it's nikar, it's visibly false, the Pasal Rahman, the Torah does not reckon with. And that does not impact the mincha. Okay, interesting discussion. Typically, Shaloi Lishma would keep the carbon kasha, but would require the owner to replace it and bring another one. But what about Akira Batos? Rav Machlekes, Rav Chizah says it still makes an Akira considered Shaloi Lishma. Rabbi disagrees. He says if it's a tos, it's not considered an Akira, and it's perfectly fine. Continues the Mishnah. Atmidin in Ma'akvar Musaf. So we discussed many sort of equations where we have several factors, and you have one without the other. Is it mi'akiv? How critical is it? Now we're going to move on to a similar listing of joint factors and discover which ones are essential, which ones aren't. So you have a day in the Beis Hamikdash, a Yom Tov, a Rosh Chodesh. You're meant to bring the basic standard karbanos, the tmidin. In addition to the musafin are like noisaf, right? Added karbanos, like on sukkahs, right? What if you only have access to one set of karbanos, not the other? They couldn't find it, they couldn't afford it. What happens? Are they considered one inseparable package? Are they essential for each other or not? Hatmidin ein ma'akul musafin. You can have musafin without the tmidim, and vice versa. V'lo have musafin, nor are the musafin ma'akfin. Do they hold back and interfere? Es hatmidim the tmidim. V'lo musafin ma'akfin zeh. Likewise, even in the musaf category itself, if you have some musafin, not the other, they don't hold each other back. Just brings what you have. What about the carbon tablet, which we know is meant to be a keves in the morning, a keves in the afternoon? Suppose they missed out the morning one. Can they still bring the afternoon? Yakribu ben Abayim, bring the afternoon one. Rab Shimon, a masa, when do we allow the kohanim? The morning kohanim who missed the morning to do the afternoon. Bezman shaya nusin, when it was beyond their control. Or they were some sort of misunderstanding. If they intentionally neglected to do the Talmud in the morning, then we compel them to vacate, and we have other Kehanim step in and do the afternoon. They shouldn't be the ones doing the afternoon. We penalize them. What about regarding Torahs, which we know is also a double dose, part in the morning, part in the afternoon? So typically you take a mana, a certain amount, and you do half in the morning, half in the afternoon. Let's say they missed out the morning Torahs. Lo yaktiru Torahs b'bayker, yaktiru ben abayim, do the afternoon, despite missing the morning. Rab Shimon, once again, v'kulo yisakrev ben abayim, he adds a point that in this type of case, where you missed the morning, you meant to do a full dose, a full mana, instead of just half, a full dose in the afternoon. And he explains, because shein mechanchanas mizbach hazav ela b'kteres hasam, just as we find when they inaugurated, the first time they used the golden mizbech, upon which the kteres is offered, they inaugurated by way of using it for kteres. That's how they sort of activated, by putting kteres on it. And we know at that time they did a full mana, it wasn't half and half, full mana. So likewise, in this type of case where they missed the morning, So instead of doing the half dose, which is the standard, we do the full amount. The full amount instead of just half in the afternoon. Interesting, connection between the two halachas, which will be further explained in the Gemara. Okay, another point. Once we're on the topic of chinuch, of inaugurating the klei migdash, furthermore, the first time they used the mizbeach ha'olah, which is the outside mizbeach meant for the animal karbanos, how do they machanach it? How do they activate it? The first carbon is meant to be the morning tamid. The first offering on the shulchan is also meant to be elav lechem apanim b'Shabbos, lechem apanim on Shabbos. That's how you activate the shulchan and give it its kedusha. How do we inaugurate and activate the menorah? Once again, by activating it, but actually using it the way it's meant to be used. Elam v'shiva ne'reseh ben arbaim. So you do the kindling of the 7 lamps, and you do it ben arbaim, in the evening, which is the appropriate time. So you inaugurate it by introducing it to its proper avodah and its proper time and its proper setting. Okay, continues the Gemara. He asked the question to Rav Chisda. Tzibur she'ein lahen tmidim umusafin. Okay, so the tzibur is short on animals. They don't have enough for tamid and musaf. So which one takes priority? Ezeh me'en kodim. Which one takes priority? Okay, so it's a day where you meant to bring a tamid and a musaf. There isn't enough to go around. Hey Chidami, can you explain to me exactly the setting? You have a choice between today's tamid, musaf and jemei, or today's musaf. Which one goes first? Pshita, of course, to be nadif, and of course the tamid goes first. Because the tamid has 2 factors in favor. It's mekudash. It relates to the holiness of the day, of the Yom Tov, which the Musafin also relate to, right? But the Talmud has an advantage. It's tadr. It's a daily carbon. It's more frequent. Certainly that takes priority. There's no question. Ella, rather, the question was, Tmidin de la machar Musafin da idna. So today is Yom Tov. We're holding at the Musaf. We only have a limited supply of animals. They can be applied for today's Musaf, or wait for tomorrow's Tamid. Perhaps you should wait for tomorrow because that's tadr. Well, says the Gemara Pshita, once again in this case. Sorry, so what's the what are the factors at play? Shall we say Tmidin Adifi? Prefer the tomorrow's tamid, shkein tadr, because it has a tadr factor, the more frequent factor. Or shall we say today's tamid takes priority because it relates to a Yom Tov. It has the kedusha of the Yom Tov, which the tomorrow's weekday tamid doesn't have. He says, Tanisua, let me bring you a raya from the Mishnah, our Mishnah. Hatmidin ein ma'akad musaf, and tamid, the absence of the tamid will not hold you back from bringing the musaf, and vice versa. V'lei musaf ma'akad satmidin, v'lei musaf ma'akad zeh. End of quote. Let's analyze the Lashon Mishnah. Hey Chidami, what exactly is taking place? How much do they have? Is the Mishnah just talking about sequencing? They have enough animals to go around. They have sheep for the tamid, for the musaf, no problem. And the point of the Mishnah is just to discuss the sequence. Which one's meant to go first? Tamid or the musaf? Ulakadim? Really, that's the discussion about Tanya. We already have a discussion elsewhere. We have exact instructions. How do we know that nothing comes before the morning tamid? So the pasuk is speaking about the oila, the morning oila, the tamid, referring to it as ha'oila, the known, the special one. Rav explains, ha, the extra a of the oila is oila rishona. That one, the first one. Clearly, the tamid goes first. El Pshita de Leslie. So we turn to Talmud Beis. El Pshita de Leslie. So clearly we're not discussing sequence. That's pretty straightforward. Rather, we're speaking that there's a shortage. We only have kvasim for either or, either Talmud or Musaf. What does the Mishnah say? Do what you want, right? Now, Vidya may, but again, if the choice is between today's Talmud and today's Musaf, Amai, why does the Mishnah allow you to apply the animals for the Musaf and ignore the Talmud? We already established that the Talmud is more important. Tadar and Mekudesh Adif. The Talmud, which has both factors, Tadar and Mekudesh, stands higher. El Abdullah Machar. Oh, apparently the Mishnah is speaking about the case we described earlier. It's a choice between today's Musaf and tomorrow's Talmud. Today's Rosh Chodesh, Musaf, and tomorrow's weekday Talmud. Uptani, what does the Mishnah say? Do what you want. It's your prerogative. You can take the sheep and apply them as today's Musaf or tomorrow's Talmud. Apparently, they're both on the same level, and it's up to you. So that's the answer to your question. Abaye says, Abaye, no. Who's to say? Perhaps the Mishnah is not speaking about a shortage and a question of appropriating. Rather, we're speaking that everything is here. It's a question of order, of sequence. Shall we do the Talmud first? Shall we do the Musaf first? Well, the Kashilach and answer your question that certainly the Talmud goes first because of the halacha shlo davar koidem. Nothing can come before the Talmud. Mitzvah ba'almu. That's just a mitzvah preference. That's the way you're supposed to do it. The Talmud first and then the Musaf. The Mishnah is speaking that he didn't listen to that. He switched things around. Does it work? Yeah, it works. Okay, Tashma. Here comes another raya to try to resolve our question. Again, the question was, you have a choice between using the animals for today's Musaf or tomorrow's Talmud. Which one goes first? Mishnah in Erechin, ein peichsen. You're not meant to have less mishisha shleim than 6 sheep. Hamavukaren, which were properly inspected and ensured to be free of any mum, of any blemishes. And this was meant, was reserved for the carbon Talmud, which needed 2 sheep a day, one morning, one in the afternoon, in the evening. So you meant to have at least 6 blishkas atloim, this designated lishka, this chamber, which was where they held the atloim, the sheep, for the carbon Talmud. Why 6? To ensure adequate supply for 3 days running. Kedei l'Shabbos u'l'shnei yom tovim shel Rosh Hashanah. Suppose you have Rosh Hashanah falling out after Shabbos, so you need for Shabbos, for Sunday and Monday, a total of 6 animals. So you reserve 6 in advance for those 3 days. Now, Eichadami, what are we talking about? Why only 6? Ileimod islay tibidir musafin. Now, if they had enough animals for the tmidim, which are 6, and the musafin, which are meant to be coming on those days as well, tu bahavu. So, why are we speaking only about 6 tzlaim? You need many more to cover your quota for the tmidim and for the musafim together. Tu bahavu. Many more than 6. Eladav Leslie. Oh, apparently they're running short. Okay. And what does the Mishnah tell us? If they're short supplied, reserve the remaining animals for Talmud use at the expense of the musafim. We don't do the musafim when we don't have enough. Ushmamino. So the raya from here is that tmidin adife. If there's a choice between bringing a Talmud or a musaf, right? You reserve the animal to be used for tomorrow's Talmud, Rosh Hashanah's Talmud, over today, Shabbos is Musaf. Right? That's a right to our question. Which one comes first, tomorrow's Talmud or today's Musaf? Apparently tomorrow's Talmud, because of the Tadr factor. No, we're not talking that they're running short. They have plenty of supply. What then is the number 6 all about? The Mishnah means like this: Ein poichsem meshishat loim hamvukorim b'lishkasat loim. Daled yamim koydem shchita. Mishnah is simply telling us, look, that the animal intended for the korban tabah needs to be inspected 4 days in advance. So Wednesday's korban tabah has to be inspected starting from Sunday and Monday and Tuesday. Every day has to be inspected. Umani ben Bagbak, Yibgonik ben Bagbak, who says as such. We learned this from the korban pesach in Mitzrayim. Menayin l'tamid shatoin bikur. How do we know that a korban tabah needs to be inspected? Dal yom kodim shchita, 4 days before the shchita, including the day of shchita itself. Talmud loymar tishmur lahakol b'moyadoi. So the pasuk in describing the process of the korban tabah uses the term tishmuru, guarded, lahakravli, in advance of the akrava, and we connect it to a similar phrase employed by the korban pesach back in Mitzrayim, where we know it was reserved 4 days in advance. Elsewhere it says, so tishmuru mishmeres, similar wording, adar basar yom, until the 14th, so you have to reserve it starting from the 10th, right? The process began on Yud Nisan, and it was held and kept and inspected constantly until the 14th. So we compare the Tamid to the korban pesach back in Mitzrayim. Just like over there, it needs to be inspected 4 days running before the shechita. Afkan here is all by the Tamid, and this is unique to the Tamid, not to the Musaf. The Tamid has that requirement as well. Ton bikar bar yom kadm shechita has to be inspected 4 days running. So that's all the Mishnah is talking about. Make sure, on Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah, there are no animal dealers that can sell you pre-inspected animals. Make sure you have enough supply before Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah arrives. Have enough to go around. Enough animals which were properly, inspected in advance of the shechita. So why only 6? It should really be 7, because the day after Rosh Hashanah, next morning, where are you going to get your animals? It's early in the morning. Nobody's selling, inspected animals. Hani Shisha. So why is it only 6? Shirva Hava should really be 7. Though Safra did plus of Shabbat. You have the Tuesday morning Tamid, which you're not going to have. You're not going to have what to buy. Well, Tameh says the more, well, according to you, it's really 8 also. Tamanya Hava, it's really 8, because what about Friday afternoon? The Ikka, the Panya, the Mali Shabbata. You have the Tamid of Friday afternoon. Panya Mali Shabbat in the evening before Shabbos, meaning nobody's in business anymore. All the stores or shops are closed. So presumably they checked and they reserved it in advance. So it should really be 8. Halei Kasha. Also the Akriv Kamar. Okay, so it's not a problem, because we're talking that they already offered the Tamid of Friday afternoon. So that's out of the way. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what you need going forward for Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah. But the question is, you still need 7 for next morning. That's a good question. Ella said, well, you're right. Let's explain the Mishnah totally different than what we thought. We're not speaking about the precise number of karbanos that are required for an actual Shabbos followed by Rosh Hashanah. Elotana ba'almakoi. We're talking about a regular Wednesday, a regular weekday throughout the year. And the Tana is instructing us to ensure that we have at least 6 animals pre-inspected in that chamber. There's a special takana because basically it's a 3-day supply, right? To ensure that we don't run short. 3 days is a reasonable amount of time that we can, find what we need. So it's sort of an emergency, short supply to ensure that we don't run out of animals. So why does the Mishnah relate to Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah if it's not really relating to those days? It's just a general directive to keep 6 animals. Simon Ba'alma is just a simon to remember how many, instead of just saying 6. So the Mishnah sort of colors it with an event in the calendar, Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah, which all understand requires 6. So that's the point. Just make sure I have 6 animals pre-inspected to ensure that you don't run out of animals. Lahavdol was once in a Toyota factory, and they show that they're very perfectly synchronized in time. They don't have anything extra sitting around, but they do have 1 day supply of imprinted parts. So that would ensure that they don't run out of any parts that they need to assemble their cars. So lahavdil, Chachamim sought to ensure that they don't run out of inspected animals. Make sure to have at least 6 sitting in the economy. In fact, the precise wording of the Mishnah indicates that we're not speaking specifically to address Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah, because the Mishnah says kedei, as though, right? It's an amount which would theoretically suffice for Shabbos and Rosh Hashanah, so it's just sort of an example, but the point is the number. The main thing is the fact that it's 6. Look, Tony, it doesn't say Shabbos, that actually it's going to be used for Shabbos and for Rosh Hashanah, will be Yom Tov and Rosh Hashanah, so clearly it's not actually addressing those days. It's just a siman to remember that we need 6 animals. Okay, in any case, it doesn't relate to our discussion. Our Shaila, which was a choice between tomorrow's Tav and today's Musaf, we're not talking about that type of dilemma, and that question sort of remains unresolved. Okay, let's just back up to the beginning of the daf and do a quick chazora. We have a kivsei atzeres, which was shechted l'shum elim. So according to Rabbi Barchana, it's kosher, but it doesn't count as a kivsei atzeres. Rav says it does, and we have 2 ways to explain. According to Rav Chizda, that's only because he actually did l'shem kvasim, and it was kvasim. But if he would have in mind l'shem elim, and he claims as such, even though it was a toz, because they thought it was elim, that would interfere. According to Rabba, Akira b'toz does not interfere. We had some kashas and some discussions about it. We went on to the Mishnah. Tamidim himself and do not hold each other back. We spoke about a case where they missed the Talmud in the morning, what to do. And we said, look, if it's a question of today's Talmud and today's Musaf, of course the Talmud is higher because it's Tadar and Mekudesh. The question would be tomorrow's Talmud versus today's Musaf. That was an interesting question. We attempted some rayas, but as yet it was unresolved. Okay, all the best to you and Atzlach.